1.
Welcome, folks, to another episode of Busting Fear. And tonight I have a guest with me, Anne. I have been going over to the Oregon College of Chinese Medicine. I've been getting some acupuncture, and I've also been getting some nutritional supplements. They can make up a formula for you specifically and deal with issues that you might need to be addressed. And so I wanted to bring Anne on tonight because I know some people have some fear about getting an acupuncture therapy, and the show is called Busting Fear. And I've noticed some interesting things as I've moved through this journey happening with me, because every week I go in and she asks me all these questions, and I really have to focus on what my body is saying. And that's been a difficult, sometimes an interesting journey, sometimes a challenging journey to really understand what those responses mean. And Anne has been really great at helping me to interpret those responses. I do want to remind you that this is a live call-in talk show. We have the phone right here. We're ready to answer. The number is 360-693-7544, and my sign just tipped it over. Let's see if we can. It's a live show, folks. These things happen. It's called the Quirk Factor. And hopefully, they're laughing in the background. It's okay. So anyway, I do have some information loaded up on my website, as always, at divinedominoes.com, which is on the banner there, which someone just focused on a little bit ago, divinedominoes.com. But I don't have anything up there tonight about acupuncture. I do have information up there on psychopathic systems in politics, medicine, and government, which you will find very irritating and enlightening all at the same time. So, and then afterwards, after we have our little discussion here, then we're going to have Adrian and Tim join us again. Last week something happened, and I guess the sound wasn't captured, so we're going to try to recreate that show from last week and talk about metaphors and symbols that are provided likely from a divine source to help us as we move through this journey here on this planet. So, Anne, what can you help people understand and help them move through fear of getting needled with acupuncture needles?
Okay, that's a big queer quest, but it's a good one. Well, with acupuncture, we have many different ways of treating people. So the most traditional way that everyone seems to know in the United States from TV and movies and such is the needle, of course. And most people don't like getting poked with needles for obvious reasons and don't like being in pain, again, for obvious reasons. So a lot of people that come to us as either a last resort. They've tried everything else. Nothing's helped. They're in pain. But they don't, well, what we like to encourage people to do is come right after an injury, especially because we can shorten the injury span, hopefully, or at least relieve some of that pain during the course of the injury healing. So if a broken arm or whiplash, those kind of things, hopefully we can at least relieve the pain during the healing process, if not shorten the process a little bit.
I have just want to interrupt you here. I did have my own experience with that. And I think it was my back or something I hurt quite severely, and I don't even remember how I did it. And I was quite shocked because the next day I had the appointment and I went in and they figured out where the needle. And I was amazed at how quickly I recovered, because most of the time you just don't do anything and you suffer through it.
Right.
So I can testify that I had that amazing, relieving experience from excruciating pain.
Which is great, and I've had that experience as well. Not everyone responds that well, especially if it's been a long-term injury or if it's a very serious injury, such as a break or something. It may not respond as well, but there's always the people who do, and it's amazing. But we almost always, can't say every time, but almost always see a decrease in pain, at least to a degree, but during the treatments, and there are things we can do long-term. And for the people that are needle phobic and do not want to be around needles, there are other treatment styles that we can incorporate. So we always encourage people not to let the needles scare them away. There's acupressure, which is exactly what it sounds. You're pushing on acupuncture points rather than putting a needle in them, and it's very effective. That's how a lot of Japanese acupuncture is painless, or attempts to be painless, and even with needles. And so they try to incorporate very painless and soft styles rather than harder, more intense, going deep and trying to get like a muscle to move or something like that, which can happen with acupuncture. And my personal style is to go and do whatever the patient needs. So I go kind of patient by patient, and some people I do very deep, aggressive needling, and it's a little bit more intense, and other people I'm a lot more gentle with, and it just depends on what they're coming in for and what their body's telling me and what they're telling me on the treatment as we do the interview and stuff. And I never needle right away. It's always they come in, we talk, and because I'm still a student at Oregon College of Oriental Medicine, I'm an intern, it's my last year, I have to get supervisor approval. So it's always a big process, and I always am discussing it with my supervisor, and he or she is always reaffirming what I'm coming up with and reaffirming everything I do. And then there's the herbs aspect as well. We can give herbs and things to help with a number of medical issues and mental, emotional issues. And as we treat people, we try to treat the whole person. So we may be treating leg pain or something like that, but if the person comes in and is stressed and that aggravates the leg pain, we're also going to treat that stress and try to help manage that anxiety, those feelings of anxiety, and help bring that down so that they're a little more relaxed.
I would like to say when I came in last week, no, that was this week.
Yeah,
that was yesterday.
That was yesterday.
That was yesterday, yeah. And for some reason, I was just anxious, and I didn't know why. And she really picked up on this. And it was interesting. After I had the acupuncture treatment, I looked entirely different. I looked stressed. The dark circles in my eye, under my eyes, were like lightened up, and I felt just relaxed and just sometimes. Moonlight Sonata came on.
Yeah.
Oh, Moonlight Sonata came on when I was laying there, and my favorite song probably in the whole world, and it was the most interesting sensation. I'm laying there, and when Moonlight Sonata comes on, where the needles were, it felt like they were tingling with that music.
Yeah.
And I went, whoa.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the synchronicity of it was quite interesting.
Yeah.
Because it was just what I needed.
Exactly.
At that moment. I've had moments where I've cried, I'm laying there and I'm just feeling this gratitude, and I'd just be crying like a baby. And says, nobody walks in because they will come in to check on you, and I'm crying like a baby and says, thank you so much, you helped me. I'm crying.
Right, exactly.
Because I'm having such a release. So it's been a very interesting journey. And the other thing, I didn't know this, but as some people get older, they can lose their ability to digest food, their hydrochloric acid. And I'd been suffering with this burning in my stomach almost every day of my life for 5 years, and I couldn't get an answer. And I went to the I didn't go to medical doctors because I'm not going to take a pill. And so they've been working on a formula, and I'm telling you, this has transformed my life amazingly. It's so nice to not be in agony with your stomach all the time, all day long. And now I just have moments, but I've been working on this for a year, so I don't go to a medical doctor and and they spend 8 minutes with you and they give you a pill. You really work with the whole person to help them move through whatever the issue they're confronting, which is very nice.
Exactly, yeah, and that's what we strive to do. We try to treat mind, spirit, body, all three at the same time. And there have been many times where we've seen that connection where you're stressed and it causes another problem, which leads to physical issues. And so the classic is everyone knows the stress causes the tension in the neck and the arms and the shoulders. Like people hunch up and cause that tension in that area. And so we relieve that area. We can do all we want to the muscles, get all the massages we want, but if we don't treat the spirit and calm that anxiety and those feelings of stress and anxiety, it's just going to keep coming back, and they're going to constantly have to be getting that. And while we can't necessarily cure that, we can help guide them through that. And then if they're doing their own work at the same time on themselves, processing correctly, and if they need to, obviously at certain levels, people getting help with counselors and people who are qualified to do that kind of work, they can really make a difference and potentially not even need the neck and shoulders treated ever anymore. Just come in for what we call a balancing treatment, where we basically do points to help keep them going and to keep their spirit up and everything. But it's only once in a while rather than every single week or every single day or whatever they've been coming in for. So it's really nice to see those changes, and it's awesome when we have a long-term patient because we get to watch that change happen.
Yeah, I started, I think, a year ago in April at the Cherry Blossom Clinic. Then they closed that down, and so I've been coming to the what do you call
It's the Hollywood Clinic.
The Hollywood Clinic, yeah. Just a reminder, this is a live call-in talk show, 360-693-7544. We have the phone right here if you have a question for Ann. I also want to say, week before last, remember I came in and I almost hit someone.
Right.
Before I went into the appointment, I got distracted by this artwork on this new building, and I was looking, and I turned around just in time to hit the brakes, and so you have that adrenaline rush, and then like 2 minutes later, I'm in the clinic going, I almost hit somebody, and I'm freaking out. Yeah. And so she puts a needle right here in what's called the third eye, and then she gets the approval, then does that, and then we have our conversation. And then I get up and I go to the restroom, and I'm walking down the hall, and the other students are there looking at me. She's got a needle in her head. But they notice that,
Yeah.
But it was so nice to be able to get a response instantly.
Right. Yeah.
Instead of going through this rigmarole, here, take this Valium or something.
Exactly.
And just help me just move through that trauma of causing harm to someone else, which I really don't want to do.
Right, right. Yeah, and that's always, it's amazing how many times that happens. People come in and they've had something like that happen, and to watch that transformation over the process of the treatment. And I consider the treatment started from the time I come out and greet a patient in the waiting area.
Yes.
Because my interaction with each patient is part of that treatment.
Yes.
Intention is so important. And so I try to focus my energy and focus myself so that I'm thinking about the patient and how I can best help them, and what do they need at that moment. Is it an ear to listen to? Is it a safe place to cry? Is it some place where they can just laugh and talk and be themselves? What do they need, and try to meet that need and then go from there.
Well, it's so nice when I walk into the clinic. You feel like you're appreciated rather than a burden. Every time I walk in, she's smiling. How you doing? You ready to go in? And it's just such a pleasant environment. I also had an interesting insight when I was sitting in the office and you were getting approval for the needles. I looked at the artwork on the wall.
Right.
And in that moment, I went, oh, that artwork is part of the therapy. Because the way the Oriental or Asians paint, you know, the clouds in that circle and the waves, creating a wave motion, it's a representative, it's not literal, but it's meant to send out a very calming, environmentally conducive environment in that space to help the patient. And I didn't realize that. And I had that insight on Thursday. And so it's like, it's treating, like she says, treating the whole person. It's not just, you're just not your pain.
Exactly, exactly. And that includes all 5 senses, so sight, sound, smell, you know, and touch, you know, being in an area where it's safe to be yourself. All of those things incorporate into the treatment. And many acupuncturists will use essential oils and things to set the mood in a treatment room. They'll either put some essential oil on their patient, or they will put it in the room. And yet again, if that patient is sensitive to scents and things, they won't use those things because those things could be harmful to the patient. So it all depends on the group they're treating, who they're treating, and everything. And all of it can lead to newer experiences for each treatment. And each treatment's vastly different. Even if the same points are used, each treatment tends to be different in different ways.
Yeah, I've been paying more attention to my own bodily sensations probably within the last month. And it's very interesting when she does this, and she doesn't tell me what it's going to do. And so this last couple of times I go, oh, she might be needling my foot. And I went, oh, I feel stuff just kind of energetically losing my head. Oh, yeah, that's what that point was supposed to do. You know, she doesn't tell me anything, so that's kind of a confirmation. Well, it is a confirmation.
It is.
That point does that thing.
Yeah.
And then I've also had at times where after all the needles are in and I'm laying here, I will just have these waves of, like, ocean wave sensation going through my body. I don't know what that is, but it's almost like the whole body is working in harmony to do this stimulation or calming or healing or whatever it is. I am curious about, do you have people come in that are really fearful, but they know they have to do it?
Yes.
And how do you help them get through that?
Well, just recently I had a patient who came in, and every first patient's given the little spreadsheet of these are all the things that could go wrong with your treatment. And so she was very anxious about all the stuff that was listed there. And 99% of the time, the most people are going to experience in acupuncture is maybe a little bit of bleeding, maybe a bruise, nothing big, you know, just a dot of blood as if you pricked your finger on a needle, you know, because, I mean, we are inserting needles into the body, things like that. But there can be some very scary experiences that happen if people are not needled appropriately, and we're trained very appropriately. So for her, I had to sit down and I had to be like, well, yes, this is the worst case scenario. This could happen, but this is how I needle, this is why, and this is how it's not going to happen. And if it does, this is what you're going to experience, and you tell me right away, and we will get you the help. And I was able to explain the difference between something that is a minor injury, something that's a major injury, and so on, to help try to calm that down. And I let her vent about what she was afraid of, and it come to find out a lot of her anxiety towards the treatment was coming from something else, and she knew that the acupuncture would help, and that's why she was there, because she had had it before. And so we were able to discuss that from that point on. And so it was just being able to listen and be like, don't worry, if it does happen, we take care of it right away. We don't just send you home. That's not going to happen. And
yes, that's really nice. Like, for sometimes you will hit some really sensitive points on me, and I might jump a little bit, but I also know that you can just pull it out just a tad, and that sensation, if I'm having like that continuing, I don't know, it's like a tingle or a tingle pain thing or something, and it's like instantly it's gone. Yeah, it's not something that's going to last and last and last and last.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's instantly just it's just adjusting the needle.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. And there are many times where people get, acupuncture gets kind of a bad reputation in the media sometimes because all the good things about acupuncture can make a good story, but it's even better if you hear that acupuncture actually did harm.
Yes.
And there are many things that are misconstrued as acupuncture, which are not acupuncture. The best example is dry needling, which is actually a controversial thing that comes up in the United States.
What is dry needling?
Dry needling is where they insert a needle into the motor point of a muscle. So like your back has knots in it.
Yes.
And so they're inserting the needle into the motor point and then vesiculating it a little bit, moving the needle back and forth to get the muscle to release and unknot. And it's a technique that acupuncturists use, but the people who are doing this are doing it typically a lot deeper and heavier than what acupuncturists would do. And they don't use some of the tools. Like for me, if I'm going to really try to get a needle in the upper back and upper chest to relax, I'm going to use my electro machine, which sends a small electric current through it to relax it. Because that's safer than if I put the needle in and move it around, which could then go into the lung and cause a pneumothorax. It could puncture the cavity around the lung and cause an air bubble, which could cause problems with breathing.
Now, where do these people learn this unorthodox technique? I don't know what else to
it's
say.
allowed in certain states, and in
Is
other
it?
states it's not.
Okay.
And acupuncturists are actually fighting it. It's one of the things that the acupuncture groups, like the NCAOM and such, are trying to stop. And the reason is because it does give acupuncture a bad name. It was started by certain people who figured out that if they I believe they were physical therapists. I'd have to look into the full history, but they realized that if they took a hypodermic needle full of saline solution and put it into these knots at certain areas and injected the knots with the saline solution, it caused the muscle to spasm and relax. And then the knots would go away. And their patients actually started to heal and become pain-free from that point on. And after time, they stopped using as much of the saline solution. That's why it's called dry needling now, is because now they just use a needle. So it's taught at various locations throughout the United States, and certain states allow it. Colorado's one. And then Washington and Oregon have been going back and forth. They've been fighting it pretty heavily. It's done by physical therapists and chiropractors who take courses in it and learn how to do it. They learn where all the motor points are. They're given maps to show. And then most of it's by feel. You kind of feel around, you find that knotted space, and then you go into it. And the problem is that it's very heavy-handed. And so it can cause a lot of things. So sometimes there was a case down in California where that happened. Somebody did dry needling and caused a pneumothorax because they were being a little heavy-handed in an area they should have been a little more gentle with.
One thing you taught me was that about the chi in the
Yes.
body. In summertime, and more in the warm months, it's more towards the surface, and in the winter, it's more in.
Right.
And so that makes a difference in how deep you have to go with the needling. Is that right?
That's right. Yeah. And it's personal too. It's by person and by season as well. So the seasons in the Chinese calendar correspond with different things. And so summer obviously is very what they call yang, or very alive. And so everything's kind of out front, it's sunnier, it's warmer, everything. And so the chi of the body tends to be more towards the surface, and so it's easier to find, easier to get to. So we're probably not going to have to needle as aggressively or as deeply as we do in the winter. And it also depends on the person. I've needled people, I could put needles into them and they would never feel it. And I could move the needle around for a while before I find chi and before they feel anything. Other people, you barely put it in and they already can tell there's something there. And it also depends on the point as well. How deep do you go for a point? Obviously, if it's on like your hands or your feet or even the face, you aren't going to go as deep as if it is in a bigger muscle, such as on your thighs or calves, things like that.
Well, I have moments where I've had all ranges of sensations. I feel nothing, and then other times you say, please cough or breathe out, because when you get down to the toe area, it's a little bit more sensitive. And then I think kind of like in the calf, back of the leg, I don't feel anything at all. And then other times I've jumped because I didn't expect. So I've had a whole range, and it's really funny when the supervisor comes in. It's time when I'm jumping. I say, "Don't worry, it's okay. You know, we're just having fun here." Now,
Exactly.
do you also find that there are patterns of your clientele? Like, do they come in with patterns of things happening at one time?
It's interesting you say that, because last term I saw a lot of people with anxiety.
Okay.
And they just came in. They were like, I feel very anxious. I feel very stressed. And so we were doing kind of an emotional management and just trying to help them manage that. This term, it's really interesting. I'm seeing more patients with shoulder and neck tension due to feelings of anxiety. So similar problems, but different presentation.
Oh, interesting.
And it's really interesting because also we see different things in the seasons. Obviously, just in the past few weeks, as the weather's been changing around here and we've been going from winter into spring, more people are getting sick. And so we're seeing almost everyone seeing colds and flus and things that they're treating and stuff, at least in certain patients. And so, yeah, there's always like a few people will come in with very similar presentations. I have about 5 or 6 patients where I have to really look at their charts and I have to detail certain things, because otherwise if I just detailed they have pain here, they look like they have this presentation, if I just detailed what was going on with them in their physical body with just the neck pain and tension, I wouldn't know who that patient was without seeing a name and a face, like, because I have to be very thorough with the chart notes in other areas. And same with certain conditions. So say IBS, for example, or something like that. Certain conditions will look similar in every patient. And Western medicine has that too, where they have, you know, your textbook patient is going to be a certain way, they're going to be a certain age, they're going to have certain presentations, and we have our textbook patients. And then there's outliers to all of that.
Oh, of course.
So we have to really spend, that's why I like spending a little more time with my patients to figure out what is their real presentation. They may be saying they have a headache, but what's actually going on causing that headache?
Right, getting to the cause, because the pain is just a symptom of the source. And so you try to trace it down to the source. I know last year at the other clinic, our friend who had lived with us for the last year of his life, he had stage 4 cancer, and I was just kind of frazzled after he passed. And then a couple of days later, I had the acupuncture or the whatever, my appointment. And I was just like so glad that I could, for me, going in once a week, I go in once a week, it's like my spa moment.
Right.
I don't like massages. I don't like people, I wasn't abused as a child or anything like that. I had great parents, but I just don't like people I don't know touching me. I'm just that way. But I don't mind being needled with acupuncture. And it's just like after you go out the room and I'm just there with the needles and myself, it's just like, oh, this is heaven. I mean, I'm really aligned with the acupuncture and the therapy that's happening there at the college. And so I'm really going to miss her
I know,
when she moves on. And we've developed such a wonderful, wonderful relationship here. Is there anything else you would like to add in this last few moments? And then we're going to switch over and have Adrian and Tim come on up to continue our conversation from last week.
Yeah, I think all I would add is that acupuncture is a great resource for any condition that people have, really. Even if it's something that we can't cure or fix, so to speak, we can at least help people emotionally manage through that crisis or that condition.
Yes, and I've been a witness to that. Yes.
Yeah. And it's just, it's your spa time. It's your you time where you can come and relax. And it sounds strange to say just take a nap for like 20 minutes and relax and get centered back in your body. So many times people are not in touch with what's going on emotionally and physically, and acupuncture helps bring you back into your body, helps center your body back to the way it should be, and helps things move the way they should. So.
Oh, okay. Adrian, Mike said, Adrian?
Yes.
Do you have some questions you would like to ask Ben about acupuncture at all?
I guess I wasn't able to listen to the whole conversation, so I don't know if this question's been addressed.
Well, can you
But,
come on up?
Sure. I guess how long have people been practicing acupuncture historically?
It's been over.
They can't hear you on the mic, so you have to get close to the mic.
I just wanted to know how long in history have people been using acupuncture?
They've been using it. There are records past 10,000 years.
Wow.
Of acupuncture, using stone needles and stone blades and things, doing crazy treatments with, so it's been a long time, and they've been developing it as in a very scientific way, treat someone, observe what happens, treat them again, observe what happens through
0, 2, 3,
millennia
1,
now.
2,
So
4, 6,
it's
0.
very safe.
It'd be kind of funny if it was discovered
4.
by accident, like some guy tripped and fell on a needle and hey, I feel better, man.
Exactly. There are many jokes made at acupuncture school about like who decided to eat this plant and see what it did. Like really. And there are books written on that too.
Yeah.
It's a very interesting history of acupuncture and medicine, of Oriental medicine is a very interesting subject.
Just a reminder, folks, this is a live call-in show, 360-693-7544, 360-693-7544, if you'd like to ask a question of Ann or Adrian of myself. Did you have any other questions you wanted to ask?
I'm sure they'll hit me as soon as we're done, but right now I feel kind of on the spot and I'm having trouble coming up with one.
Oh, okay. I do want to say it is just $25 to go and get a session, so just go try it. I mean, it's worth it for the $25 just to see what the session is like. One thing you did do for me is that you ordered some special thinner needles.
Right, exactly. Yeah, and that's another way we can treat our patients better. There's different sizes, just like with earrings, there's different gauges of needles. So we can use thinner, smaller, less painful for the patient needles, or we can use bigger ones. It all depends on where we're poking on the body and what we're trying to do. And the length of the needle can change as well. So in certain cases with a more sensitive patient, I tend to use thinner around, they tend to be smaller gauge, and then they tend to be shorter because the patient is just a little more sensitive, so they doesn't have to go as deep into the body.
My chi seems to build a little bit more to the surface compared to other people, so I'm a little bit more sensitive.
Yeah.
Yeah. Also, I want to say when we were trying to sort out what was going on with my digestion, Winnie, the other student, suggested, she said she was thinking about it, she says, I might be sensitive to eggs. And so I eliminated eggs, and then I got a food sensitivity test. They will make suggestions to go get some other testing, and so I did. And it turns out I'm sensitive to about 13 foods that I had no clue. Pineapple.
Yeah.
I seldom eat pineapple. And chicken eggs and duck eggs. And let's see, almonds. And I ate quite a bit of almonds. And so I eliminated those things out of my diet. And that really made a shift too, because you can be sensitive to foods and not even realize it.
Right, exactly.
And so their suggestions help guide you in another direction to help improve the state of your health too. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
It seems in Western medicine that we kind of view, Eastern medicine as kind of like, snake oil salesmen, and just, when it kind of comes across that like when you have something that promises a bunch of benefits, we just look at it like the guy on the covered wagon back in the day trying to say, oh, it'll cure baldness and make you thin and you'll get the strength of a bull, and everyone's just like, not interested. Like, we're only interested in drugs that have a specific effect on a specific disease. And it just seems Western culture is really resistant to Eastern medicine. And
Yeah.
do you have any ideas why that might be?
Part of it is how it's viewed in the media. When reports like acupuncture caused this problem in this person, or I've seen articles on different Chinese herbs, some of which we don't use anymore, some of which are only used in specific cases and with other herbs that make them safe. So it's a lot of things taken out of context to be like, oh, this is a poison. Why would you ever use this? Oh, this is this. And it's like, well, we don't use that poisonous substance anymore because it's been shown to be too toxic. And maybe things have changed in 10,000 years of medicine. You can't, in our current world. And so there's a lot of resistance that way. And then there's a lot of resistance in the medical community because they went a different direction with their treatments. But acupuncture has been here for as long as the Asian community has been here, really. And there was acupuncture in the Middle Ages in Eastern countries and the UK and stuff. And so it's really interesting when you actually realize acupuncture has actually been around for a really long time, but there's just this hesitancy because it seems so strange that put a needle in your hand and it's going to help your back pain. Because that just doesn't make sense to our we look at the body as a machine, everything's connected, and it, the blood's kind of like the oil and the gasoline, air and everything. And so we don't really look at it from the idea that it's not just like your car where you put in gas and it goes. It's more complex than that, and everything's interconnected anatomically and at the atomic level. And so people haven't figured out every little thing that creates how the body runs. And there's a lot of research being done into why acupuncture works. If I put needles in someone's hand, how does that help their back pain? And there's a lot of research being done with now the functional MRIs and that kind of thing, trying to figure out, like, is it a brain process? Is it a neural process where it's just the nerves taking it through? Is it something musculoskeletal? And everything. So yeah, and it's been pretty exciting to watch that research being done.
I my family's really into mushroom hunting, and we've always kind of done it just as a kid. It was kind of neat to walk around the woods and find free food, and it's an interest of mine, and now I like studying mycology. I'm just on my own. I don't take any classes or anything. But I look at Oriental medicine and their use of medicinal mushrooms like reishi and shiitake and all that kind of stuff. And everyone kind of looked at it all weird. And then now it seems like Western medicine starting to kind of get their feet wet and put their toe in the water and and look into these. And they're finding they're just loaded with all sorts of antiviral and anti-cancer compounds. And it's like they were right the whole time.
Yeah.
And it's like we're just now starting to realize that. And that's kind of a lesson I try and do is, we tend to limit our view on the world from our perspective. And just when some other culture does something that seems foreign to us, just kind of automatically discount it. Oh, that's weird, those backwards people over there. And I think that'd be a good lesson to us all just to, give it some credit. There's a reason people have been doing it for 10,000 years. If someone didn't notice an effect, you figure they would have thrown it out 8,000 years ago.
Yeah, but there is this, I don't know, this statement, the United States is the greatest country on earth. Some people really believe that. And so they dismiss, other cultures, other things, other venues, other therapies, other treatments.
Yeah.
And some things we are just not the greatest
in
the world at.
Yeah.
I do have to admit I'm one of those people, but we have a lot of growing up to do on a lot of areas. I do think it is about the best place to come if you want to just speak your mind without interference. But we do have a lot to learn.
Yes, we do. We do. We should be more accepting of other kinds of therapies, other kinds of philosophies, other kinds of ideas, because we don't have all the answers. We've got a lot of problems here.
Yeah, I mean, that's why this country was founded, is acceptance of other people, and their indigenous cultures. So, I mean, in a way, that's the very blood of being an American, is allowing other people to come here and do as they wish.
And trying to Well, I lost the thought. Never mind. It's okay, folks. It's a live show. It's the quirk factor. Anything else, Adrian, you want to?
I just wanted to say thank you for coming on.
Yeah, no, it's been fun.
I wish I could have listened to the whole thing. I was trying to help with camera and stuff too. But.
Yeah. Yeah, no, and I'm always happy to answer questions about acupuncture.
Hopefully we can have you back sometime.
Yeah,
before
maybe.
you
I
go
know.
for Timbuktu or wherever it is you're heading off to.
Exactly. Yeah.
So where is it you're heading off to when you graduate?
Upper Washington right now.
Oh,
So
okay.
It may change tomorrow. Who knows?
Okay, all right. Well, we'll keep in touch and figure out what happens to you and where
Yeah.
you're going. So, so I guess now we'll make a transition, and Tim, you want to come on up, and then we need to switch out. Okay, the general manager, Mike, wanted to know if you've noticed any kind of people having a reaction to GMOs.
Not personally in my practice so far, but I've been pretty limited, obviously, for only a year in.
Okay.
But I know of a lot of people who report cutting them out
Okay, yes.
and feeling a lot better. And if you've ever met Robin O'Brien or heard of her,
No.
she wrote a whole book on how her family cut out GMOs and went to all natural organic foods and how that helped. And her movement is to take GMOs out of all the mainstream food and to cut out junk food in general. And that's one of the things she promotes. And they tend to report, a lot of people for her Facebook page and her websites and stuff report to her that they cut out that stuff and it really improved their lives.
Okay.
Yeah, and I always encourage my patients to eat as natural as possible. So even if you can't really look at GMOs or you don't know how, if you look at whole foods, so
Yes.
eating actual meat, not processed something, eating actual fruits and vegetables rather than corn chips,
Yes.
things
Yes.
like that.
The real deal.
Exactly.
The real food, not the fake food, but the real food.
Right, and processed food, in small amounts probably isn't going to kill anyone overnight, but it's definitely something that's very addictive to our bodies.
Yes.
They've shown that in studies, and it's definitely very, very, it's tasty for a reason. And
Well,
so-
they've put the additives in there, and then
And sugar.
so that you'll eat more. And then they've also created the other where you take all these supplements supposed to make you thinner and
Exactly.
healthier. So they create the problem.
Yeah, and so I've definitely seen a difference when people eat things such as fruits and veggies and meats rather than eating, McDonald's or
Yes.
other things that are processed, or even like the lean cuisines and stuff. And
Yes.
yeah, even though those are made from whole foods, they do still have a lot of junk in them. So I've
Yeah,
seen the
you really
difference.
have to read labels. This is a live call-in show. We have the phone here, 360-693-7544, 360-693-7544. Tim, did you have any questions you wanted to ask Anne or make a comment?
There's more complexity than GMO, what most people know. Canola oil from
Yeah.
day one is genetically engineered. Rapeseed, better known as soybeans, they are genetically designed also. The tobacco industry, while they were on the Senate hearings years ago, admitted that the tobacco that they were growing at that time was genetically engineered to have more nicotine, a higher strength of nicotine in it. So, and I'm a natural eat person. Aluminum, I make sure it doesn't have aluminum, but this whole thing with GMO is kind of spooky if you don't know what you're really looking for. And you've got to, thank God for the internet, because now you can do the searching of these words, 50 letters long, that you can't pronounce or anything. It's like kind of like Breyer's ice cream. There's only cream and sugar in it, and but the sugar. Now that's all processed. I lived in Hawaii for years, And I've eaten sugar cane off the cane itself.
Yes, that's
It
different.
does not look like the granulars that we see
No.
today, you know, so that's been processed to a great degree. So how do you actually get around making sure that what you're eating is not going to, on a long term, affect your health and affect your mind?
Right.
It's tough. It's tough to do.
And yeah, and it's interesting because there's still not a lot of research on that area, and there's not a lot of research on foods that have been sprayed with pesticides, all that.
I bet
So-
there is.
There's some,
I
but
love a
not a lot that's
conspiracy.
out there. Yeah, exactly.
I believe there's more known than what we're being shared with.
Okay.
I really do.
I had lunch with my mother and my sister yesterday, and they live in Belfouche, South Dakota. You have to go there on purpose.
Brr.
Yeah, so they're out here visiting some friends and such. And I asked my mother about vaccines. Because, you know, when we were little, you were expected to have the measles and chickenpox and mumps, and no one died, and no one was afraid of getting it. It didn't hurt you. And my mother said, I've never been vaccinated, and she's 85 years old.
Ah, bless her heart.
85 and never been vaccinated.
Mm-hmm.
I read a study the other day about, the H1N1 swine flu.
Yeah.
When that was going around, one person died from the flu, 500 people died from the vaccination.
Yep.
So, and this push for vaccinations is some really scary stuff, folks. Don't be very, very cautious. It's not appropriate to put parents in jail because they won't have their child vaccinated.
Well, the FDA does not stand for Food and Drug Administration. It's fake document
There you go.
administration.
I just read a study today, or a report from 2009 in the LA Times. There are these 7 drugs that were approved, but yet in one of those drugs there was a person in the administration said that this flu shot isn't going to do anything for you and recommended against it, and they approved it anyway.
Yeah.
And it turns out there were 7 different medications that had to be stopped, but it wasn't stopped until they made something like 500 million or 5 billion or something. I think it was 500 million or 5 million. Anywhere is a figure. That's far too much money and far too much harm. This is insanity. It's just insanity.
Yeah, and it really comes down to people need to research and figure out what is best for themselves and,
Yes.
and for their families. And yeah, and we need to be supportive of that process.
Well, I don't support putting toxins into the body in any form. In fact, last week, Adrian brought up, I said, our first agenda should be to cause no harm. And then he brought up, of course, killing cows to eat food. Well, other animals have to kill other animals to survive. I'm talking about the intent to cause harm. There's clear intent by the pharmaceuticals to cause harm and make you stupid. And in fact, Obamacare was created to help people comply.
You mean
adults comply with getting their vaccinations, because us adults are under-vaccinated, yet my mother is 85 years old, never had a vaccination.
I thought it was Obamacare.
Obamacare.
Oh, okay. Okay, I thought so.
So it really comes down to intent.
Yep.
You know, you have unconscious intent and you have conscious intent. For instance, just a thought, I watched a lot of Oprah shows, I watched a lot of Dr. Phil shows, and I finally had to stop watching Dr. Phil because he never asked the person that's doing them complaining and blaming and causing harm to someone, he never asked them, well, how much pain do you need to cause this person until you're healed? He
Good
never asked
question.
that question.
Mm.
And what I've come to realize is people that have been traumatized and don't understand how that trauma motivates them to manifest in the world. And I have a saying, if you don't deal with your everybody else has to.
Yeah.
And you either act out on others or you're acting on yourself. So we need a psychology to realize that we have issues. that need to be dealt with. And if you don't know that you have issues, you're going to cause harm to someone else.
Yes.
And you're going to lay blame, and you're going to put guilt on them. You're not going to take the responsibility to take care of yourself. See, I've taken responsibility. I've sought out the counsel of these wonderful people here to figure out how I can fix myself. I'm not blaming anyone. And that applies on all levels, whether it's mental, emotional, spiritual, or physical.
It's good
We
karma.
all, yes, we all need to take responsibility to help sort this out and be the best that we can be
Yep.
on this planet. Create that Star Trek experience now. We don't have to wait for the 23rd century for it to show up. We can explore, we can understand, we can have a dialogue with people to understand. And causing harm, I don't care what level it's on, whether it's war, and the only reason you have war is because you have people buying into the minions. If the minions lay down their guns, I mean, imagine this planet in peace all day long, every day. What is the news going to have anything to say about?
Whew. We'll find out about 10 years from now.
So anyway, that's my hobby horse. That's my bailiwick. Cause no harm, have no dogma, have no story. Your dogma blocks your authentic experience and understanding because we try to put everything into that dogma that we think is the way things are. Nothing is the way. Your dogma will not define how things are, ever.
Interesting.
And if you don't know what your story is, your dogma is, your story will tell you what your dogma is. So work at having no story. Cause no harm, have no dogma, have no story.
They're going to have a new show with you one day. It's called Dr. Carol.
No, I am no doctor.
The philosopher.
No, I'm just a observationist, and I've observed things, I've studied things, I've looked at things, and I haven't talked to anybody about this stuff. So,
Ooh.
and I appreciate Mike Fisher, the general manager, of encouraging me to have the show, because now I have a venue to say what's on my mind and have people join me in this conversation. It is so wonderful to know that I'm not the only one that thinks this way.
You're not.
So thank you so much, Tim, and thank you so much, Ann, for coming
thank
on
you.
today, and I appreciate it. And is Adrian available or not? I guess 1 second.
He wouldn't miss the opportunity of us all sitting around talking about
Okay.
stuff.
Okay, well, we have
Good
10,
stuff.
we have 10 minutes left if we want to continue the conversation. Do you have anything you'd like to say on a spiritual level?
On a spiritual level?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if this is spiritual, but what you were talking about with the story, I always like to think of people's stories as training them for the rest of their life. So as you are born, you start your own personal story, and that interacts with everyone else's. And I always like to think that the best thing people can do is to learn from that story and to figure out the best way they can be in the world. And I really do believe that if people look for the answer, you know, there's the joke about the answer to the life, the universe, and everything being 42 from Hitchhiker's Guide.
Yes.
And it's like, I really do think that if you look and you really are truly seeking, you will find truth.
Mm-hmm.
And that it is out there. And so I really like to encourage people to look in their own story, look in their own history, and not in a I'm better than anyone else, or not in a judgmental or painful way, but as a what can I take from this? What's the lessons that I've learned? What are the experiences I've gained so that I can take this on in the future and help others and help go through the next experiences and everything, and as a learning experience.
So that's how you do not cause harm, is you look for how can I help the next person
Exactly.
that I come across. Of course, people come to you. I mean, it's kind of automatic. They show up, you know, to get therapy, so you don't have to go too far to find them.
Yeah, it's true. But you know, if I'm not helping people, if I'm not there for them, and if I don't help them as they're needing help in the right way, they aren't going to come back.
This is true.
And and word spreads. So
Yes.
and you can see that with different people in different fields. If they aren't really enjoying what they're doing, if they're not in the right place, it's going to just not be a good place for them, and they're going to be upset and frustrated and not be very good in their own personal life, whereas the people they're interacting with are also not going to be very happy with where they're at either. And that's when you get those people where you're like, okay, what's going on here?
Mm-hmm.
And so yeah, I think acupuncture is very much that way. You have to want to be there. You have to want to help your patients and know how to engage without cutting them off and without being distant and
Mm-hmm.
and keep that safe space and for them.
Tim, is there any thing that you can add about what you have observed as you've been on your journey? Is there one thing that really stands out, a principle that you live by? It doesn't have to be one thing, but is there at least one thing?
There's one quote I remember as a child reading was from Abraham Lincoln. He said, "I will do my best as I can see it and leave the rest up to God." And I have done the very same thing. I've died not that many years ago and brought back.
Mm-hmm.
I had my heart completely rebuilt. It gave me more strength with God because I've always known I needed help, but I'm never the kind of person to ask for help. That's this big problem I've always had in my life. But I'd rather turn to God because He's not going to lie to me. He's not going to give me false hopes, false pretenses, and so forth. But I've learned that if I keep a good spiritual life, and I'm not a Bible thumper or bang on your door, to tell you you're going to do it my way, or, here comes the Templars coming after you. But if you're true to yourself and you're true to your God, things just seem to go better. You have more joy, more love, more happiness, and like yourself is, my first thing in life is to help other people. When I was in sales and management, my first thing was people, with CFL, customers for life. And if you treat them right, the way that you want to be treated, things are going to go good. I love buying a new car because I will turn the negotiations around and I'll negotiate what I want. And I've done it. I've got up 3 times and got ready to walk out, put my money in my pocket, my wallet back in my pocket, my keys back in my pocket, and each time before I got through that door, they said, "Well, just a second." Not to be a controller, but if they learn just one thing from my approach that makes them do better, or vice versa, we're winners, no matter what. And I think that's what life is while you're here. There's going to be a day I will have to answer to my shortcomings or my decisions I've made and so forth like that. But it's my love for God.
Okay.
He's my dad.
Okay.
Abba is father.
Okay.
So why not just have a daily conversation? If I got in trouble as a kid, I didn't go to my brothers to get things resolved. I always went to my dad, and God's my dad.
Oh, okay.
So that's why I think I've got this closeness to him. My father's passed away now, and I only have one dad left, so we talk quite often.
Yes, that's wonderful that you have that relationship where you don't feel like you have to have somebody between you to get the answers or guidance that you need. And if anybody's God is asking them to cause harm, I would question that's not a decent divine source.
No.
That's not a divine source at all to be
No.
serving or promoting or moving, because a true divine source would not ask you to cause harm to yourself nor anyone.
That's right.
Because there's no need. I mean, a
Yeah.
divine source doesn't need bloodshed. Come on.
That's it. There's no purpose.
There's no purpose, yes.
So
Yeah.
why do it?
Yep. I hear some beeping, but I don't hear any voices. Sorry, folks. Okay. 1 minute left. So, any closing statements?
Just that I hope people feel more comfortable and coming to get acupuncture. And yeah, it's a great experience.
Is there a phone number that you're allowed to give out to contact?
There's the school number. I have it in my purse. I didn't bring it up. But,
Oh, okay.
yeah, they can look up Oregon College of Oriental Medicine, OCOM.edu, and they have the number there, and they can
Right.
call that. NCNM's got a program for both naturopaths, and it's very similar, where it's it's interns and their instructors who are running the show and treatment, and they can also help, and they do acupuncture as well. They're a little bit more Western, but they still do it. So yeah.
All right, that's our show, folks. Thanks for watching. Good night. Oh, yay. Good. Thank you for helping.
I wish you were in Vancouver, because
I know.
you know, because my Medicare doesn't cover me in Oregon.
Oh.
I think.
Yeah.
This is new to me, so I'm not